What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. We are here breaking down this Monday Night Football Showdown slate for DraftKings and FanDuel. We have the San Francisco 49ers at home taking on the Los Angeles Rams in a game that only features a 42.5 point over-under, but a 2-point spread, so hopefully it should be close and back and forth. Although I'm not getting my expectations too high for this game. 49er games, while they do have good teams typically, they just tend to be a little bit on the boring side, but at least they have Deebo Samuel and George Kittle to watch. And the Los Angeles Rams, yes, Matthew Stafford coming off an amazing season where he won the Super Bowl, but obviously they haven't looked as great as they did last year. But Cooper Kupp has still been the same, pretty much the same guy as we saw last season, where he's just picking up right where he left off, and he's always going to be a treat to watch. So while my expectations are low, I'm more than happy for those to be surpassed. If this is your first time here, my name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. And specifically for these showdowns, we pretty much go through each position, filter by team, so it's kind of nice and organized. Then we build a lineup as we progress through it to see what fits. And then around the optimizer that I have at the end to see who the projections like the most. And I'm also a contributor over on Stochastic, doing some NASCAR and baseball live before lock shows, doing some videos on demand, and also some articles. If you've seen my face before, that's probably why. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return, if you can just leave a like on the video and hit that subscribe button. We are very close to 10,000 subscribers. I believe we're like 70 away. I know we're not going to hit it in this video, but if we can hit that soon, that'd be absolutely awesome. I know it means absolutely nothing, but at least it's a cool number to see, and I do appreciate everyone being a part of that. And if you're the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks, you can use promo code CPEN to get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100, either using the link down below in the description or head over to prizepicks.com, but I highly recommend it. Love playing on it. But either way, I think that's it for the plugs, so without further ado, let's get right into it. And as always, we will start with the quarterback position, which isn't too exciting on this slate, just a couple of pocket passers here. And if you do want access to the sheet, link down below in the description for that. I do cheat sheets, projections, optimizers, ownership projections, all that fun stuff. Link down below in the description. We have NBA coming up later this month. We got NASCAR going on, so fair price and lots of good stuff on there, included all the data you need, color-coded nice and neat, so it's easy to follow. But anyway, quarterbacks. We have Matthew Stafford here at $10,600. I am fine with both of these guys in the flex spot, but I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to have too much of them in the captain spot, especially Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not a huge fan of him at this price point anyway. I mean, yes, if you're playing cash games, it's always nice to try to get in both quarterbacks, but on this slate specifically, because Cooper Kupp's really expensive, and if you're plugging in Matthew Stafford, and then you also have guys like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, it's like Jimmy G, probably not a huge priority for me. Now, he's still going to be in some of my lineups, but I don't think he's an absolute must play here at this price point. But before we get ahead of ourselves, talking Matthew Stafford here, it's only a 20.25 implied team total for the Rams on the road in San Francisco, and Stafford has not been amazing this season. Only 250 passing yards per game, less than 2 passing touchdowns, 7.5 yards per attempt, completion percentage close to 80%, but hasn't exactly been incredible this year. Not really someone you really want to roster for DFS purposes. And the 49ers, it's a very small sample size, but through a few weeks, they are allowing the second fewest points per game to the quarterback position. And they're also 5th DVA versus the pass, and only 167 passing yards per game. But to be fair, they did play Justin Fields in that, big weather game to start. So I would say those numbers are probably maybe a bit beefed up from where they should be. But with this being a showdown slate, we can't get too picky. I will be playing Matthew Stafford, but I think he's better suited for the flex spot because he's not going to go up by himself. One of the skill position players is going to have to do well. So I think it just makes more sense to put them in the captain spot. And then as far as Jimmy G goes, if you don't think Matthew Stafford's been awesome this year, well, it doesn't get much better here. 182 passing yards per game, 1 touchdown in 23.5 attempts per game, and both these guys don't run the ball. Now, the Rams have been a bit worse versus the quarterback position this year, 23rd versus the position and 22nd DVA versus the pass, but it's still not going to get me too enticed here. Yes, they have the higher implied team total, but I would, at similar price points, I'd rather get the Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford. So switching over to the lineup here, not going to do anything too special. Just going to plug in Stafford in the flex spot. I've only covered quarterbacks, but you probably have a good idea where I'm going to go. We'll probably see Cooper Kupp in the captain spot, and we'll fill it out from there, but just put Stafford in and we'll move on to running backs. And I wouldn't say these are the two best teams to talk about with running backs because it can kind of be annoying. But with the 49ers, they have some injury issues. Jeff Wilson's basically the only guy there getting snapped, so it's not like we have to really worry too much about who's going to be getting the ball here. So we'll start with the 49ers because they make it easy. Jordan Mason saw 9% of the snaps last week. The fullback always plays a lot, but then Jeff Wilson played over 70% of the snaps. So you have to really expect anyone to get volume. We know it's going to be Wilson. The Rams are a bit more of a headache. At this price point for Wilson, I'm okay with it. There are 2-point favorites at home. And his usage has been pretty solid. I mean, 13 rushing attempts per game. I believe he got up to 18 carries in his last one. Also, a few targets have been mixed in there as well. But the Rams have been pretty good versus the run this season. But we just can't get too picky here. Maybe he falls into the end zone. If he does not fall into the end zone, you're probably not going to be happy at this price point. I have him around 13.5, 14 points. That's 1.7x. It's not bad. It's the best between all the viable running backs here from Henderson and above. So I'm okay with some Jeff Wilson, but not a main priority for me. And then we have the Rams, which they basically completely split the snaps. Both guys played 50% last week. Cam Akers did have more volume. If I had to pick between the two, I will take Cam Akers. I feel like his role is a little bit more secure. I think I would have to bet on him getting more touches, and I do have him projected higher, but this could be very annoying because we could have one guy just get pulled around the goal line, then we plug in the other guy, and you could get your touchdown vultured. So it's going to be tough. I have Akers projected for 8.5. I have Henderson in the low 8s, so it's very similar. Both have about the same value at 1.2x. I would probably split them up, but I would have a slight lean towards Akers. But to be honest, this is a bit of a headache. And if I'm building a single entry lineup, I'm probably not touching either. And then moving on to the wide receiver group, this one's a little bit more fun to talk about. We'll start with the Rams here first, which is basically a 3-man show of Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and Ben Skowronek. And I do have a theory on Skowronek, and the only reason I think he gets targets is because Matthew Stafford thinks he's Cooper Kupp sometimes. Because when you're watching the games, they look just about the same. So $4,400, he should at least get a few targets, but all these guys play a large majority of these snaps. And if we're looking at the target distribution so far this season, no surprise, Kupp, 11.5 targets per game on a 34.5% target share. We have Allen Robinson at a sub 12% target share, only 4 targets per game. Then we have Skowronek, which I call Walmart Cooper Kupp. He's just under 4.5 targets per game, which is just under a 13% target share. So personally, I would have to rank these guys probably Kupp, then Skowronek, and then Robinson, because I can get Skowronek for about $2,000 cheaper. And if he's going to average out to about similar or maybe even a little bit more targets per game than Robinson this year, well, I will just take the value that way. Now, Robinson, I would say he's got at least some decent touchdown upside if they get around the goal line, but even then, he's still behind Cooper Kupp by a lot, and he's also behind Tyler Higbee in terms of targets, and he's been behind Skowronek as well. So while I know he's got better name value, which does $6,200, I'm okay with it. Like, if he gets into the end zone, you'll be happy at that price point, but it just hasn't really produced so far this season that well. And Cooper Kupp, I mean, he's probably going to do Cooper Kupp things in this one. I know PFF has him as like 100 advantage over on their website for the wide receiver versus cornerback matchup advantage. I don't really care about matchups too much, but it's always nice to at least have a good one. And the 49ers have been tough versus wide receivers this season in the fantasy department, only the second fewest points per game to the position, but I don't care. I'm playing Cooper Kupp. I'm going to put him in the captain spot often. And a lot of people will do that as well. So if you want leverage, you better go pretty high on Cooper Kupp. And then moving on to the 49ers, we have Deebo Samuel at $10,400. He's a bit of a hybrid, though, because he can run the ball, too. So you're kind of getting 2 players in one with that. Then Brandon Ayuk at $7,600. He plays just about all these snaps. Then we have Ray McLeod, the third, at $2,400, and Juan Jennings at $2,000, who actually is popping quite a bit in the optimizer, just value-wise, because if you're trying to jam in guys like Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Deebo Samuel, you're running out of money quick. George Kittle's going to be, he's got good name value, although he hasn't been amazing so far this year in a very small sample size, but he is cheap at $6,600. But either way, if you're trying to jam in those studs, you're going to need a guy like a Jennings or a McLeod if you want. But looking at the target distribution, Deebo Samuel, just under 7 targets per game on a 28.5% target share. I know 6.5 targets per game isn't great, but they don't throw the ball that much. But he's used on the ground as well, so you are getting at least some added touches with that. Then you have Brandon Ayuk, just over 5.5 targets per game and a 23% target share. Then we have McLeod coming in at only a target and a half per game, just under that. But Jennings is sitting nearly 4 on a 14% target share. So at his $2,000 price point, if you need a value play, he's actually one of my favorites as of right now. But I'm going to try to jam in a lot of Deebo as well. And I don't think Ayuk's a bad tournament play because I'm not sure a lot of people are going to try to jam in 3 49ers wide receivers if they're playing a lot of Deebo and if they're playing a lot of Jennings, which I think they will be for value. So if you're trying to get some contrarian or just a pivot play, Ayuk's not a bad one to get to because he's playing nearly all the snaps, and at least he's got a little bit of upside. And moving over to the lineup, I didn't add any running backs in, so we skipped that, but we are going to jam in some of these wide receivers here. So I'm going to put Cooper Kupp in the captain spot. Yes, I know it's going to be chalky, but I don't care. I like fantasy points. So we're plugging him in. It's $18,000. It's going to eat up a large chunk of our salary. I'm also playing Deebo Samuel. Now in this specific lineup, there's no way I can afford Jimmy G, so we have $11,000 left for 3 spots. If I try to do that, yes, technically you could afford it, but it's just not going to fit in a lineup that I want to build. And then I'm also going to plug in Jennings here for a value play. Now, I'm not saying he's a lock must play, but at $2,000, it's not bad for a guy that's at least going to be on the field and seeing targets. I mean, 6'2" and 3. Has it produced too many fantasy points? No, but at $2,000, I don't mind it. And that gets us $4,500 left for the last 2 spots. Once we talk tight ends, kickers, and defenses, we can certainly make that work. And then moving on to tight ends, this is kind of easy because we just have 2 guys that are going to dominate the snaps. We saw George Kittle in his return, maybe not return, but maybe debut for 2022 season, $6,600. Feels cheap for a George Kittle. I feel like we usually see him around like $9,000-$10,000, although I realize he's only played 1 game this year, but he played 91% of the snaps in that one, and he's going to be the main guy here. I don't really think you'd want to roster guys like Dwelly or any of these other scrubs, so it's really easy. It's just Kittle and Higbee. Personally, I prefer Higbee a little bit more. He's cheaper on DraftKings, but more expensive over on FanDuel, so I think you're getting the better bargain over on DK, but he's been getting peppered with targets so far this season. Nearly 7.5 targets per game, close to a 25% target share, and almost 5.5 catches. So if I had to pick between the 2, I'm probably going to go with Higbee to throw the ball more anyway, so there's at least more opportunity. Both teams have been pretty stingy versus the 10 position, but that can be a very noisy stat. And I do have Higbee projected a little bit higher than George Kittle. So given the price points, I like Higbee. I'll have exposure to both, but I'll have more Matthew Stafford, so it makes more sense that I will end up with more Tyler Higbee. And then my favorite part, talking defenses and kickers, like they're all right. For this game, it's only a 42.5 point over under. I'm fine if you want to filter in some defenses, but I'm not going to put them in the captain spot. They're fine flex plays, but I'll probably end up being underweight to the field. Like let's say, for example, the 49ers defense came in at 20% ownership. I'd be all right being around 10 to 15. I just don't want to eat 20% of my lineups on the 49ers defense, especially if I'm going to have a lot of a Cooper Kupp, for example, or Matthew Stafford. Let's say the Rams versus Jimmy G. I could actually see them being a little bit higher owned, especially because they're less expensive and people don't respect Jimmy G as much as Stafford. So let's say the Rams defense was around 20-ish%. I'd still be underweight on that. I'll be underweight on both, and definitely none in the captain spot. And as for the kickers, I don't typically captain them often. Sometimes they filter in 1 to 2%, but you'll never see me play like a 10% captain kicker. But they're fine. If they hit their field goals, they hit their field goals. They become decent value plays. I have both projected around 8 points. It can go either way, though. I mean, it just really comes down to opportunity for them because, more than likely they're going to make the field goals. But fine cash plays, tournaments, they're all right. I usually end up around 20-ish% on the kickers. Not really ever taking a stand or anything. And just to finish this lineup off, we have $4,500 for the last 2 spots. That's $9K flat. I'm going to try to get another pass catcher in with Matthew Stafford because I only have 1 right now. I'd like to at least get 2, I think, for this build. We're going to plug in Tyler Higbee at this price point, $5,200. Seems pretty safe for a guy that's going to get peppered with targets. 11, 9, and 4. I know that was down last week, but still 4 for 61, 10 points. He's been pretty consistent through 3 weeks, so we'll plug him in. Leaves us $3,800 left for the last spot. Can't afford Robbie Gould, but if you want to go the kicker route, you can play Matt Gay. If for some reason you want to play Powell, you can, but I don't think I'll do that much. I think Gay's probably the best choice there, but I'll let you guys use your imagination. And don't please go copy and paste this. I'm someone that builds 150 lineups. I'm not sure which one I'm going to like the most. But just for example, this is something that does fit that I think does make sense. And lastly, we'll finish off with the optimizer here. Do not have the ownership projections up yet, but if you do want access to those, you know where to find it. Link down below in the description. But we're going to crunch 150 here. No settings, no randomness, no groups, nothing like that. Just trying to see who pops up the most with the raw projections. And it looks like we finally got the 152 crunch, and I didn't do this on purpose, I swear, but the optimal here is the one we built. So I guess that's probably going to be a very popular build. Could end up seeing that be very cashy. But if we look all the way to the left here, it's going to show our usage, and yeah, 81% Cooper Kupp in the captain spot. I like him a lot, but I'm not sure I can get that high. A lot of Higbee in the flex, a lot of Matthew Stafford, Debo, Jennings, Gay, Wilson. Yeah, I think it makes sense. George Kittle at 25%, maybe that feels a little bit too low, but if you're trying to get more access to the Rams offense, I guess you can't get too high on a guy like Kittle if you already have a guy like Debo in there. So yeah, not really too surprised who's popping. Pretty low on Jimmy G overall, but his price point is kind of expensive, so I do understand it. But with that being said, that'll conclude it for tonight's video. If you did enjoy or found it helpful or entertaining or something in any way possible, even if you hated it, consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's try to get close to 10,000 subscribers. Absolutely awesome. Do appreciate that. If you do want access to the optimizer, the sheets, all that fun stuff, link is down below in the description for that. But I'll get out of here. Wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully you all enjoy the game, and I'll see you all next time.